Good morning and welcome to Wednesday. As many of you may know, the kids and I are up in Oklahoma as we are taking care of Dulcie's mom and dad for a little bit. Just a quick update, and then we'll jump into our broadcast today. Dulcie's mom is doing well. She's just recovering in the hospital right now. So we're here prepping some meals, taking care of the house, looking out for some things, mostly taking care of Grandpa a little bit. So thank you for your prayers and all of that. I know that prayer meeting is tonight, so be sure to be involved in that. You can find what you need on the website. The link is there on the website. It's right on the homepage now. So I encourage you to go look at that and be a part of that. Bill Artist works hard to prepare lessons and prayer times for you guys. And so I encourage you to take part in that. Well, without any further ado, we're going to jump right back into the conversation that we started yesterday. We are welcoming Dr. Jason Atchley with us again. I tease him about that just because we're friends, but I do want to welcome Jason back to the broadcast today. Welcome, Jason. How are you doing this morning?
I am well, and you don't have to have the formality, but I do appreciate the doctor on the front end. I tell my wife, you can call me anything if you put doctor on the front. I never hear anything else.
That's right. You don't hear anything else after that? Okay. All right. Now we're talking about 1 Corinthians 13 as we talk about this post-pandemic playbook. Now we'll get back into the title in just a second. But when I think of 1 Corinthians 13, I think love chapter. As we touched on a little bit yesterday, when I think of 1 Corinthians 13, I think of weddings. Now, I obviously, and you do too, and many of our listeners know as well, that it is couched between the spiritual gifts passage and the passage of service in 14. And so it's almost as if, I say almost as if, Paul put this in. It's like he started talking to them about, okay, you've got hands and feet and eyes, and you can't disrespect one another. You need to accept one another. You need to realize that you can't live without each other. And so you've got to figure out how to put all these parts together and make one unit out of it, make a body out of it. And he's like on a roll with this, and you've got this and this and this and this. It's almost as if he stops and says, but wait a minute. If you don't love each other, none of this is going to work. Absolutely none of what you're trying to do is going to work. And so, Jason, talk to us a minute about what drew you to this scripture for this time and for this concept of a post-pandemic playbook. Well, would you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. No, and I appreciate that's a great question. I was reading through Tony Evans' new devotional book. And started that at the beginning of the year, doing one a day. And one of those, right about as the time of this pandemic and the lockdown and quarantine and all those kind of things happened, was a small little snippet on 1 Corinthians 13. And he just kind of developed that a little bit and about kind of what we're saying in a sense of the people component and, separated from the relational aspect, although the passage is extremely relational. It's just not in the relational understanding of a marriage relationship. It's under the understanding of every relationship. Certainly these aspects apply to the marriage, but they apply. We have to remember the context in which he is writing it to the church at Corinth, not to you see all these wedding shows, and my wife was watching one recently of there was one couple from all 50 states that got married at one time. So he's not speaking to a group of couples who are about to engage in their wedding journey, their marriage journey.
He's not even talking to a church of moral superiority either.
Oh no, absolutely. And you mentioned, as we talked about yesterday, this being kind of couched in that spiritual gift, but it's interesting. Towards the end of chapter 12, he's quite emphatic on unity amongst diversity. I don't know how much more you could describe a church than trying to accomplish unity among all the diversity in which we bring to the table. And so that's where he kind of it's a launching pad for him
Yeah.
into 13. And so for me, it was drawing back to this passage. I had done a wedding in the Round Rock, Austin area early January, and I remember bringing this passage up to the couple, and they said, "No, we don't want to use that. Everybody uses that at weddings." And so 1 Corinthians 13 has kind of been on my mind and in my purview, really for the last 3 or 4 months. So this has been marinating a while. It just kind of finally bubbled to the top a few weeks ago when I was putting some of this on paper and kind of going, "Oh, I like that."
So the verses today that we were focusing on is that middle section, the most familiar, if you will, the most quoted. Love is patient, love is kind, love doesn't envy, it's not boastful, it's not arrogant, it's not rude, it's not self-seeking, it's not irritable, and it doesn't keep a record of wrongs. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all, believes all, hopes all, endures all, and even stretching into 8, love never ends. So many characteristics are found there, that all the descriptor terms of love. But I noticed in your lesson that you really draw out 3 that you feel are of maybe some utmost importance right now. What are the 3 that you feel are essential? Of course, that's a hot topic today. What's essential and not essential? What's essential for us out of these verses today? Would you share with us a little bit about that?
Sure. And that's really the term, and you said essential. That's the term that this kind of point in the message, if you will, is centered around. We've heard a lot about essential workers, essential businesses, and all these kind of things. And I think Paul is trying to tell us, here are the essential characteristics, the essential aspects of a church post-pandemic, absolutely. But gosh, it's got to be post-pandemic as we kind of come out of this a little bit and we kind of begin to see through the fog, and our eyes are lifted some, and we're kind of finding a new normal in ways. And Paul's saying, okay, these are the things. But now I think part of it's a pastoral thing where you're going, all right, all of this can't be done at one time. We're going to have to maybe find the things find the things we need to work on the most, and let's engage in that. And so I'm certainly drawn to the patience aspect. That's the first one I kind of focus on, because I'm not the most patient person. I am, and can be, a bull in a china closet. I want to, man, let's get it done. We've made the decision. Let's rock and roll. And I think there is this patience aspect, and Paul talks about this because the word used here, that's always kind of typically used for patience in the New Testament, it has nothing to do with patience with our circumstances, but patience with people.
Okay.
And so he kind of categorizes it and he boxes it into this aspect of how you deal with people. And it's literally meaning, are you willing to be inconvenienced for the sake of someone else? Does your love for them, are you willing to be inconvenienced on their behalf? And so I like this definition I found of patience. Patience is a calm endurance based on the certainty that God is in control. Now, again, that sounds like God is in control of the circumstances, the pandemic, and all the, absolutely. But God is in control of our relational aspects as well. Are we willing to be patient enough and to endure that so that people see they are essential? I came back to, go ahead.
Jason, let me drill down on that just a little bit. Don't mean to interrupt, but let me drill down on that just a little bit, because yesterday we're talking about music, preaching, and service.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about the willingness to be inconvenienced on somebody else's part.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that has some opportunity there for some ruffled feathers. It has some opportunity there as we come into the new normal. What level of acceptance am I going to have with this new normal? I had talking to an individual the other day, and they said, who are we going to ask to bend more? And am I going to ask somebody that is brand new to church, brand new to Christianity? Maybe they have been disengaged or disenchanted from church for a long time. And suddenly, because of the pandemic, because of our online presence, because of our trying to get out there, that maybe they're finally saying, I'm going to give church a shot again. I'm going to give it an opportunity. So I'm going to walk through your doors. And the question is, if love is patient, and patience is that idea of love being patient is my willingness to be inconvenienced on somebody else's behalf, it would seem to me that, now I'm going to put air quotes here, those that we would consider more mature, those that we would consider even more religious. Now, it's not about an age, it's about how steeped in the religion are you, whether it's Baptist or otherwise? Am I willing to bend in order to reach those that are disenchanted, disengaged, or unchurched completely? Or am I going to say, no, you have to bend to me? And I think that's a wrestling question. Have you thought about that? And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, and I would kind of dovetail this in saying you can't immediately come back out of this whole deal and throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think the idea is, can we begin a conversation? Can we begin processing what this is going to be? And you're talking about this could be, 12 months, 24 months, as far as putting some different measures, some different concepts into play over time. I think just simply coming back and doing church as we know it over the next 6 months to 8 months, that may be required. That may be what we need to do to kind of get our feet back under us a little bit. But it's on the onus of us as leaders and those in our church who have that leadership component, who have a voice with others who are maybe more mature than us, and they have been in the churches we serve longer than we have as pastors, that we engage them in conversation.
Or longer than we are old.
Absolutely. For you, that's so so I think it's at least saying, where do we go?
Sure.
And this idea of patience is not only the inconvenience, but I see it as like a long suffering.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound fun, right? But
oh no.
What I mean by that is it's going to be a longer period than just well, we had church, we had pandemic, now we got new church. I think that's a dangerous way to approach this, but it's a slow, methodical process that, it may hurt a little bit along the way, but I think that's God's way of chiseling us, shaping us, molding us, that refiner's fire, if you will, to be what he's created us to be.
So these three essentials that come out of here that just kind of rise to the top in this particular moment. So the first one is patience. And the second one, as you and I have discussed, is kindness. Kindness. How do we show kindness in a moment of social distancing? Because I know for many of us, an act of kindness involves something less than 6 feet. So how do we show kindness? Talk to us about why kindness is an essential and how we go about that during this particular time that we're in.
Sure, and I think you can see these two. It's if you're truly patient with someone, it's going to require a great deal of kindness, right? And so these are really playing in the same ball.
Right.
But God here through Paul, God is not asking us to express kindness, all right? To verbally say, and in our words, to be kind. My sister lives here in the Houston area.
Right.
Two little girls, so my nieces, and she's telling them all the time, all the time, speak kindness to one another. And there's nothing wrong with that. But here, from this aspect, what
Sure.
God is saying is live a life of kindness. And so
Okay.
we're seeing that play out during this pandemic as people are, I've seen teacher parades, and I've seen people that have done
Mhm.
drive-by parades for a little child that had a birthday and can't get out. I mean, all four of us, myself included, during this 6-week lockdown, we have all experienced birthdays. And so, we haven't had to go out and have Mexican food and all those other kind of things, that we like to
Right.
enjoy.
That's right.
So I think, though, this kindness, we've really begun to see how it's within us. Whether or not we allow it to come out is kind of one of those. Um, that's another question you have to wrestle with. It's a level of commitment. Kindness is a level of commitment, and so the thing I think, though, um, kindness is best expressed when we slow down. A lot of times when we are busy,
Sure.
we don't think about being kind. Um, it doesn't come to the forefront of our minds. And so the opposite of kindness is not cruelty. The opposite of kindness is busyness.
Hmm. That's
So
interesting.
I think this has allowed us to become more kind. So now, coming out of this, then I've got to be a better steward of my schedule in order to live a life of kindness. I may need to maintain some of this steady pace rather than running a race. I'm dragging myself across the finish line at the end of the day.
So, and Kay brings up a question for us this morning.
Oh,
Some of our members seem to be out of touch right now, and I know that our church won't be alone in that.
yeah,
When you talk about kindness, that yes, I think that it's on them. Will they come back to fellowship or pull away more? And so I think there is a personal decision that has to be made, but I think there's a corporate decision of kindness that has to be paid as well. And I think the level to which they come or go after that, I think it's going to be dependent on our level of kindness. I mean, is our love kind? I mean, I grew up a teenager in the 80s, and there was a thing called tough love. The idea of tough love. Well, it was kind, but it wasn't perceived as kind.
yeah,
And I don't think we want to be that. We want to be kind. We want them to draw back. And so, in reference to this question, how then how do we express that kindness in a way? And I hate to use this term, but it fits. That's attractive.
yeah,
And that, I mean, that has a whole other theological realm right now in worship structures and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to dive into that,
sure,
but I do believe that there's a level of attraction. I mean, I was attracted to this or that or the other. And I think that those, especially in our world today, they're out of touch because of this pandemic. Maybe they're isolated, maybe they don't have the technology or things of that nature. And so when it comes to this love is kind and this kindness aspect that is attitudinal as well as actionable, what then can we do? And you may not have wrestled with that completely, but what are some thoughts there on in respect to this question?
yeah. Well, I mean, kindness changes our perspective on people and patterns. And so I think we have to look at, and Kay, it's a great question. I think we have to look at what are the patterns that we have, that we've installed, um, right or wrong, knowingly or unknowingly, over however number of years, that maybe we need to look at. I think the onus on whether or not they will come is going to be on us on the front end. Now, you can't sell your soul out there and then they not come, and you have forsaken your first love, right? In Christ, you've
Right.
forsaken all things that you know to be principled. But I do think that coming out of this, the kindness aspect, that commitment's going to be on the church's part. And then at that point, as we express that in an expression of lifestyle more than a verbal expression, in an expression of a commitment to love you as you guys are doing with your Arise information and those things, that then is a place where that person is going to have to say, is that something that they're just trying to get me uh, to join the church and get my money,
Sure.
or is there that relational component that we're all hardwired to have, and somehow it connects to them, and they say, "Man, these people are legit, and this is a place, where I need to be." I think the one thing that can be dangerous, and you have to balance this. And I was thinking about this after our conversation yesterday. Balance might be the key word coming out of all of these kind of discussions
Sure.
that we're having. You have to balance this with what Jesus did with the rich young ruler. When the rich young ruler came and he says, "What do I need to do?" And Jesus says, "Well, you got to sell this, and you've got to give away this, and you've got to leave everything and come follow me." And man, one of the saddest verses in Scripture, it says, "And he turned
Hmm.
and followed him no more,"
Yeah.
or he turned and walked away. And here's the thing, though: Jesus let him go.
Sure.
Jesus didn't say, he didn't rally the 12 and he goes, "Okay, you guys go get him. We got to have his checkbook in order to fund this mission that we're." He didn't say, "Hey, we got to have them, so that others will come join the club down the street at the church at Corinth or wherever it might have been."
Right.
He said, "Okay, man, God bless you." He expressed that kindness. He expressed the expectation. He loved him, but he didn't forsake the ministry of which he was given by Christ. And so I hope that answers Kate's question a little bit, but I think it's going to look a little different for every
Sure.
church.
Susan brings up a good point. She thinks and says that the opposite of kindness in this moment may be disregard. I think that's touching a little bit on what you were talking about. I thought that was a great point. I just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have to be careful not to lose track of each other. And I think that, my parents yesterday, a couple in their Sunday school class was making some masks and things like that, which has been fun to watch people kind of just say, "Man, I can do that," and that's kindness. That's a way of living, kindness. And she's making masks for her class and not asking for any money. She's like, "I'm just doing this to help, people." And so my parents drove out to their house yesterday, about 20 minutes from here, and they took their lawn chairs and they sat on the driveway and did the whole social distancing thing. And she had their mask that she had made for them in a bag and sat it over there long before they got there. And they got their lawn chairs out of the back of their car and sat there on the driveway and visited for half an hour or so, catching up. And I think that is that's something I hope that we can hold on to. Maybe not the whole distance aspect of it, or feeling like we've got to keep people at an arm's length, because I always
Right.
feel bad in the store, where you sidestep somebody, but you're trying to, maintain
Yeah,
what's, you've
that's
been
right.
told to do. But I always feel like, well, that person thinks I didn't want to have anything to do with them, or they had the disease or whatever it might be. And so, yeah, it's going to be a different experience. It already is.
So we've talked about patience and we've talked about kindness, and you skip over a couple of others, and that's fine. But
I have that prerogative, man. I'm a preacher.
That's right. That's right. I can only pick three things.
That's right.
We'll have a poem at the end, ladies and gentlemen, just
Yeah.
to make some feel better.
That's not you. I'm not doing the poem.
Yeah, right. Once there was a dog named. No, anyway. So the third one that you wanted to bring out is no record of wrongs. Now, we talk about forgiveness, and we read Paul's other writings as he's talking about hey, you guys need to walk together, live together, forgive one another, bear one another's burdens, bear one another's sins even, and just walk with one another. But this seems to be a little different. It's not just about I forgive you, it's that I'm not holding this against you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about why you believe that this makes the top 3 in the playbook right now, this idea of no record of wrongs.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that's hard for the church to control is perception, right? I mean, people are going to make a perception. They're going to see things, make a judgment call, and those are difficult to kind of put some boundaries around. But this thing that Paul is telling us in this no records of wrong, and it's hard for me because I'm not a numbers guy, but this is the meaning of this is an accounting term. And so it's
Yep.
like writing down on paper and keeping track of the itemized failures of people. Um, and I think instead of remembering everything that's been done to you, Paul is saying, wipe out the wrongs by forgiving them and refusing to hold yourself hostage to what was done in the past. I think that's a pandemic opportunity, to where we've had a chance to slow down, we've had a chance to rethink some things, and maybe I've been a prisoner to my own wounds that
Mm-hmm.
were done to me, and they might have been done by the church. And so now, am I willing to release those? Am I willing to wad up the ball that I've been writing down, in the paper into a ball, and throw that away? It's a way of saying I'm no longer going to keep score. Um, to
Which is
all,
really what forgiveness is about.
what's that?
So often that's what forgiveness really is about.
Yeah,
I think we have misunderstood forgiveness for centuries, that we think forgiveness means somehow, especially if I'm the wronged one, if I have been wronged and now you're challenging me to forgive them, it
yeah,
makes me feel like I have to condone what they did. And
right,
that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness really is more about releasing you from holding me hostage over what I'm thinking.
right.
And it's me being more interested in tomorrow than yesterday. And forgiveness isn't about saying that it was right what they did. It's that I'm not going to let it hold me hostage any longer.
Right. Well, and remember the context, right? It's important to always go back to that. The context of this passage is what Paul was saying. You guys are
Yeah,
he's telling the church. He's not telling the church to the people out there, the people in here. You guys have got to level the playing field a little bit,
right.
and get rid of itemizing what people have done to you. And I think those are tensions that you and I as pastors have felt before, when you've got one person on one side of the room and the other person on the other side of the room, and there is a conflict between that. There's a record of wrongs. Maybe it's been going on for a while, and Paul is saying you've got to cleanse that. You've got to get rid of those things. It's going to be hard to be patient with people. It's going to be hard to be kind to someone if you're continuing to recall and remind them of the wrong that they've done to you. And so it's interesting that he somewhat kind of draws this to a close. Keeps no record of wrongs other than like not
Hmm.
self and irritable and all those things. But let me do one quick thing. I know our time is coming to a close, because I think this is how I have kind of pictured these verses.
Okay.
I want to read those verses again, but rather than read the verses with the word love, let's replace the word love with the word church. All right? So the church is patient. The church is kind. The church does not envy. The church is not boastful. She is not arrogant. Church is not rude, nor is she self seeking. The church is not irritable, and the church does not keep a record of wrongs. The church finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. And the church bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, because the church never ends. Remember, the church is plan A for the
Yeah.
gospel to be transmitted, to the next generation. And so,
Jason, that is so good. I appreciate you bringing that insight into that, changing that one word. It really brings it home in a great way. So that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. That helps us a lot.
yeah.
Hey, we've got these three things, patience, kindness, no record of wrongs. We're in the middle of what would be the beginning of baseball season. So, you got a full count. You're up by one, bottom of the ninth. You got one pitch left. Of these three pitches, which one do we need? Do we focus on one? Do we focus on three? Not that we have to put an order to them, yet we live in a linear world in many cases. So where do you start?
Man, did you load up and throw a fastball? Is that what you're trying to do there?
Tomorrow on the broadcast, we will discuss.
You will have somebody else. I think, right, you draw down to the last part of the chapter.
Yeah.
Where faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. I think you got to swing at that pitch every time. Because love is categorized in all of these other actions: patience, kindness,
yeah,
not being rude. So I would swing at that pitch before. Yeah. And I think if you hit it, you're gonna hit all these others as well.
Learning to love, and letting love be the driving force behind the decisions that we make. Yeah. I think that's important, whether it's patience, kindness, or no record of wrongs, or any of the other things listed there. Yeah. If I can, in a post-pandemic world, learn to let love be my driving force before I prejudge them walking in the door. Let love be my driving force before I let that critical comment leave my mouth because I have no filter anymore. Let love be my driving force. When I begin to think about what should I have for music, preaching, and service, let love be my driving force. When we need to look and see, should we have one service, two services, 14 services? What's our schedule look like? We should let love be the driving force behind what we do. And that is, that really will be a wonderful guide for us as we move forward in this.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So as we kind of wrap it up, it's this, we protect what we cherish.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to look within and say, does love drive us to then hold on to what is dear and cling to what gives us meaning and cling to what we have known for so long? Or what we do, as Paul, I think, is telling us, that because we love Jesus, it allows us to be willingly accepting of other things. It allows us to be open to change because love always precedes anything else.
That's right. Well, Jason, thank you for being with us on the Daily Dose today. We look forward to wrapping up this conversation tomorrow, as we will come back tomorrow and talk about ramping up our production and how we can get moving on this. So we look forward to that tomorrow. Cool. Thank you all for joining me on the Daily Dose today, and share this. If you've watched us on Facebook or YouTube, share it, share the channel. You can come to us through our website, fbccrowley.org, and find all the links that you need for that. So once again, may you go this day, think of love. Think about love being your driving force in the things that you think, you say, you do throughout your day-to-day. You all have a great day. Thank you for joining with us.